Hey, I'm Adila.
I'm Xuan.
Welcome to the second episode of Book Kakis.
Woo! You may have heard from our introduction that we have our official name for our book club.
Yay!
Yes!
Woohoo!
Yeah, so thank you everyone who voted on both our Spotify and our Instagram. And based on pure democracy, we just went with the community decided name, which is Book Kakis.
Yes, I think there was also two more suggestions for other names. One was the Kiasu book club and the other one is
Kiasu Book Club.
Kena book.
Kena book. And also there's a buku.
Kaki
buku.
buku. Kaki
Yeah.
buku is a Malay translation of book kakis lah, basically.
Okay, so our plan is that the base name is gonna be called Book Kakis.
Yes.
But at some episodes, we will switch it around with
Other
your
names.
suggested names as well. So do look out for these random episodes
Yeah.
where
because
we have your names.
why we're doing this because we just like to be extra.
And random.
Yes.
And you never know what's coming. Okay, so continue to send in your suggestions.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you will influence how we open our episodes. So, today, we are going to go through chapters 3 and 4.
How do you find the book so far? Going in now, we are considered halfway? Yeah.
Halfway already, yes. I would say my favorite chapter is chapter 4.
Nice.
The last chapter. I really had a lot of fun reading it because it gives a lot of examples and also like practical points on how you can go about designing.
Yeah. And I like how the author I remember your joke about
How the Bishan author.
she also even have a structured way of listing down like using these different factors. How would you apply as a designer? One thing I like about how she also wrote this book, right? I like how she opens up each chapter with a relatable story.
Yeah, it feels a bit like you're injecting a bit of like the slice of life. Okay, cool. How about we jump into chapter 3, which is on product presence. Right. So actually, when we close off chapter 2, right, that is where we get familiarized with this framework. The 5 rings are presence, expression, interaction, context, and ecosystem. Yeah. So chapter 3 is on the first ring, which is product presence.
Yeah, the innermost ring. So basically, it's about the overall impression of a product based on its embodiment. So imagine if you walk into a party, there are certain people with stronger presence.
Yeah.
I think this is similar to maybe people who have like charisma about them. Or maybe they have strong body language.
Correct, yeah. So imagine if you just scan through the room, right? There are definitely some people that you can you already have some sense towards them already. Like, okay, this person I think I can kind of vibe with, you know. Or this person, okay, I think I may feel a bit tense. So all this is what we consider presence lah. How strong or how weak the presence are.
The chapter basically started with a heartfelt story of the author's mom losing her ability to rely on a computer as dementia crept up.
The reason why the author mentioned that is because then she has been admitted to the hospital. That is where she brought up this product called LEQ. And this product is a great example to kind of bring up the points around how a product can have presence. So she also mentioned this term called embodiment. So embodiment is basically you kind of give a physical body to a software. So LEQ is almost like this smallish robot with a tray that you can dock your phone beside. Yeah, so it's a hardware and a software working together lah. What's interesting is that this robot will actually tilt its head and look at the phone that's right beside it to kind of nudge the user that, hey, someone is calling you. Yeah.
Because imagine as an old person, when you have the phone ringing, maybe you don't have the ability or you don't have that same vigor of just checking your phone all the time. So to have a robot like a bit like a personal assistant, so it's like nudging the old person to actually respond.
Yeah, I think that's a good point as well because software can be a bit daunting, right? It can be a bit scary also. So an embodiment of a software, like you have a lot of ways to deal with the design, to make it very approachable, to make it a certain characteristic. Yeah, and that actually helps to ease the experience of, let's say, in this case, the author's mom who has dementia. Yeah, so what she was saying that basically the meaning of presence is the characteristic upon the thing that is being built on. To me, that sounded like, what message is this thing exuding? Yeah, back to the party example, right? Like when you walk into the room, someone with a full sleeve of tattoo, then you just kind of feel something towards this person already.
You subconsciously be more wary.
Or like someone who chooses to wear like a fedora hat in a room. Then you just, ooh, this classy Bruno Mars doing here.
Or maybe someone who decides to wear a suit to a party, then you're like wondering, who is this rich CEO guy?
Yeah, like, oh, which startup did you found? That's the introduction towards presence lah. And then we moved on to talking about product semantics.
Yes.
Yeah, which is quite interesting because the first thing she brought up is this term called gestalt. If you have listened to our previous episode, she brought up this doorman example, like going through an automatic door versus a actual doorman standing at the door.
Yeah.
Back to that example, right? Actually, there's also some product semantics in there. Because let's say you're walking towards the doorman and the doorman actually spots you and he's waving to you to kind of welcome you. Right? It gives you the assurance
that you
as a
arrive at
guest.
the correct place.
Yeah, it's like, oh, hello.
I feel welcome.
Yeah.
Someone recognized me. They were saying about having this doorman is like a standout experience. For example, if let's say if you go to any other building, there's no doorman, it's all self-service. You are just expected to do everything on your own. But having a doorman, it says a lot about the building, about the brand of the building. Like you have some prestige.
Building on that also, like the stance of the doorman. Imagine this doorman wearing a full black suit and he's really standing straight and being very focused
wearing
at
gloves.
his views. Or white gloves, and this just gives like to tell the potential intruders, don't mess with us. I take my job very seriously, and if you want to find trouble, then I'm prepared for it. So these are like this social presence that you
basically
give
one
out.
more obstacle for the potential intruder to have to deal with, and they will just decide
Fan
not.
off.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. Another part which is very interesting to me also is she talks about the absence. Like even the absence of a doorman is also kind of a social presence, which sounded a bit counterintuitive, right? Because how can it be present when it's absent? But what she meant was that in the doorman example, the absence of a doorman just simply means it's after hours. So no presence is also giving a message. Then she also brought up like a very, very relatable point because I think as Singaporeans, we all like to travel around, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so she also mentioned one of the
Very prominent
examples.
feature of airports. That would be kiosk. So basically, she mentioned about how kiosks are recognized from a distance, and to have the kiosk screen facing upwards, it's like, imagine the presence of the kiosk itself provide assurance to travelers that you as a traveler from far, you just know that they can access their trip info. Yeah, that they are there and they're ready to travel, ready to check in. And so far, I think the design is quite universal. So for travelers, irregardless of language, that they just know that it's a machine expected to assist you with your flight check-in.
So when she was talking about this, I was thinking of the kiosk at Changi Airport. And I agree with that whole screen facing upwards. Because to me, the kiosk at Changi Airport always feels like a small penguin.
So cute.
Yeah, to me, they design it in a way that is very approachable. Like, they could have designed it very brutalist, right? Or like very metallic looking.
Yeah. Oh, they have like rounded corners also, right?
Very rounded. If you recall, it's almost like a tip of a spoon. It's like a spoon. And then the most is at your shoulder level. So it won't be taller than you. You feel like you're talking to a kiddo.
You don't feel intimidated lah. You feel
Yeah,
like you can
familiarity
approach
with,
this thing, and then you don't feel intimidated by the height or by the...
Correct. And I think that's something that they design purposely for. They want the whole check-in to feel as soothing as possible and easygoing as possible.
So next one is basically about non-verbal language, where it's still under product semantics. It's a deliberate creation of formal characteristics to communicate a product's role. So some of these examples of characteristics include like the shape, color, and the material. So as we mentioned for the kiosk, right, for example, how the kiosk shape is harmless. It looks like roundish, and then the color is like on point with the branding of the airlines, and the material itself is not a flimsy material. It looks like a sturdy and reliable material that you cannot just topple it over. So these are some of the non-verbal language.
Right. So imagine like maybe the kiosk. So let's say today you go into Terminal 3 at Changi Airport. Suddenly all the kiosks are wearing a leather jacket. All the kiosks suddenly are made of leather. Then you just, wow, why suddenly still a test?
Yeah. Suddenly like, is this a business section I'm not supposed to be in?
I walk into a business class section, is it? Yeah.
Okay,
Actually, yes. Huh? Like business class seats are leather ma.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
and then the cattle class, the economy class are like short fur cotton. Yeah, so that is the play with materials, giving off different messages, different feels. Yeah. She also brought in like when designing for product semantics, you have to think about like what's the product's character and also what's the story behind the character.
Basically, when they develop the story, they are giving life to the product lah.
Another thing about semantics or product presence is that it helps to give some social roles to humans. Let's say you want a reno for your house, right? Then you see a construction guy coming with a measuring tape hanging on the pocket. Then you just feel like, wow, this person knows their job. They are very professional. I'm someone who cares about, precision, about engineering. So actually, I have similar thoughts too. So for example, when I go to a cafe or when I was in studio last time, right? Then I see someone using a Lamy pen. Or Baron Fig pen, right? Then to me, I just feel like, wow, this person really is particular about the stationery they use. Yeah, so that is also a kind of a social role in a sense.
One example I can think of is when you see someone wearing a specific brand of headphones. It sort of advertises to people that, oh, I'm serious about listening to good music. It's more like a statement, basically.
It's a statement piece. And I'm pretty sure part of the money you pay is for that social statement.
So in the social roles, the author, she describes some key factors in the social nature of objects, beginning with 3 aspects of the overall relationship we have with our products. And these 3 ideas are relational. What role does the object play in the relationship between person and product? Second, emotional. What feelings does the object evoke through its use? And lastly, third, conditional. How do the various states of the object affect the way it's perceived and used? So under relational, what she mentioned about what role does the object play in the relationship between a person and a product. So the robot vacuum can be seen as a housekeeper, a butler, or a bartender, or even a nanny.
So the third one will be conditional. Yeah, how the various states of the object affected the way it's being perceived and also used. One very easy example she gave is that how would the product behave in different conditions, like when it's on, when it's off, or even when it's charging or when it's active.
So following the example that she gave, the same robot vacuum example, let's say the robot finished cleaning, maybe it gives a moment of jubilation, like it gives a little dance of happiness that it's done cleaning. Another funny example is when it passes by a particularly dirty spot, maybe it will say, yum.
Okay, so to close off chapter 3, our takeaway on product presence. So I think one thing to me is the semantics, how they appear even before you interact with them. I really like the airport kiosk example because it is a very embodiment of this whole idea of product semantics. What about you?
I like the author mentioned about the social roles and to develop product character and story. So when you have a character and story in mind for a product, it gives a sort of life and attitude towards the product. So it's easy for teams to align together. So not just designers, but even engineers or maybe even like product owners. So there's an alignment of design decisions and even in product decisions so that they know that, okay, does this make sense for this story? Does it make sense for this character of this product?
we all know that narratives and stories captures everyone. Yeah, so having a story as a kind of a backbone to a product, it really connects everyone functionally, factually, and also like emotionally. Cool. Okay, so that's chapter 3.
Yes.
Okay. Play.
Advertisement break. Okay, chapter 4.
Okay, cool. So chapter 3, we talked about the presence of a product. And then chapter 4 is where we moved one level up, which is expression.
Yes, Expression was a brand for hair, is it? Or is it face? I know this tagline. I've heard this music before. But I
From the
can't remember.
TVs. Is it slimming?
Oh yeah, maybe.
Okay, anyway.
Some people might get it, some people might not. Okay, anyway.
It's very telling about age, really.
Yes.
Alright, okay, so this whole chapter is about the product's ability to use its physical presence to communicate messages. So it's more about how it communicates to others. Yeah.
The author started out the chapter with a story about how she used her interaction with her dog as an example for non-verbal expressions. Because basically, you know, dogs cannot really speak, right? So once the dog recognizes or detects there's a visitor at the door, the dog will actually bark and jump and give a lot of expression to tell her that it's here, someone's here.
It reminds me of my interaction with my cat also.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
It's like when I have friends, for me, one look, right? I know Dusty likes or don't like them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's really
cute.
body expression. Author also brought in, there's this thing called the body language.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so sometimes you look at a person, you can kind of tell the state of that person already. You know, sometimes when you go for a gathering with friends, right?
Yeah.
Then you can tell that one person is not happy.
From the body language, yeah.
Yeah, from
Like giving the cold shoulder or avoiding eye contact.
then you just kind of have an inkling that, okay, something is wrong with this person.
Yeah.
You know, so all these are body language that, like, how can we translate this to a product?
The author put together a table, right? So basically, in the table, she puts examples of messages that products tend to communicate. One example can be when the product is trying to communicate, I'm alive. That is through the power via cord or battery, how it's connected. And then if, for example, if the product wants to communicate, I'm awake or asleep, then it basically trying to communicate that this product is on a standby mode status.
Yeah. Looking at just the first one, like, I'm alive, like, it gives you a lot of ideas on how you can design around it already. Yeah, maybe when you plug in this robot, then the cord maybe have lights from the socket to the machine lah.
Sounds like
Or to the body.
umbilical cord.
Yeah, something like that, right? Then it just feels like, oh my god, yeah, nutrition is going into a robot. I'm feeding a robot, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Then it just gives you all these like very funny, interesting ideas lah. That, you know, how can you amplify this message that the robot is alive, or you are like resuscitating the robot in a way. So that's very cool.
So basically, the author followed up with, there are 3 ways that an object can express such an expression, which is using light, movement, and sound.
Yeah, okay, so let's go into light. How light can help a product to express better. For example, a light glowing on a coffee machine is to show that, okay, it's ready to press and ready to brew. Or driving lights as indicators, the left and right of a back of a car. Yeah, I actually like that the author also explains a bit of the tech behind it. All this, right, like using of lights to kind of help a product express something, is because there's an introduction of microprocessors, with LEDs as well. So designers or engineers, you get more option to play around with the control of the color, of the intensity as well. It reminds me of the Coldplay concert also. Yeah, like sometimes it's a strong laser, then sometimes it's a very faded light.
So she gave some pointers for us designers to keep in mind when designing with light. So firstly is to use sparingly. Is this important enough to wake someone? Basically because you don't want to be using so much light, then there'll be light pollution. Then you then you won't be able to know like which light is of importance, you see?
Correct,
Because then your eyes start to sense like there's just too many lights. It's just too bright. Then secondly is to take advantage of dimensions, like the intensity, color temperature, and the color saturation of light.
I think another point also, which is very practical, which is you need to make sure that how would this light be like in both... How would this light be like her in both daylight and also at night? Because it will definitely work better at night lah.
So that's about light.
Lighter.
So moving on, we are moving on to movement.
We're moving on to movement. Haha, get it?
Moving on. I just realized the joke.
Alright, okay. So it's about using of gesture. How could a product gesture to express something? So for example, let's say a product wants to check with you if something is a flower pot. Yeah, instead of saying, okay, is this green object 17 inches from the table edge a flower pot? Versus it just pointing to the flower pot and say, is this a flower pot? So which one is more accurate and which one is easier to understand, right? So it's definitely the latter, which is more snappy. It's more accurate because you see what they are pointing at. That is basically movement that is involved already in the designing of the products. Yeah. So she also points out that, historically, right, we are very prone to movements. Yeah, as hunter-gatherers. Things moving can pose threat or an opportunity to us. So from an evolutionary standpoint, our senses are more finely tuned to notice this kind of movements. And this kind of movements is something that we can kind of capture and put it into the products that we build in the future lah. So back to the automatic door and also the doorman example. When you walk towards the doorman actually nods at you. That is actually a movement already. It's a very subtle movement, but actually it gives us a very strong message.
That's a very natural movement lah. That is universal.
However, when we are designing products, right, we have to feed them that natural
instinct.
Movement. Yeah, which I think that's quite interesting, right? Like, how do we put those natural instincts into something that is more binary?
Yeah, so that's where we as human beings, we stand out because we understand this thing called body language. So the author also, she brought up an example about how students who are studying animation, they had a standard exercise of drawing and animating flower sacs as minimal as possible to express a range of emotions. So imagine the emotion of joy. When you are happy, the character will be like exploded. This is very star looking.
Like inflated also.
Yeah, so the flower sac looks like that as well. So if it's sad, then maybe the character will look slouching, looking down. So this restriction itself is to really make the flower sac come to life based on movement. So to conclude this movement part, the author gave some pointers on movement. So she was saying that movement is the most exciting among all three. However, it requires a lot more energy than sound or light to produce because there's a lot of moving parts. So it has a greater tendency for failure from wear and tear. And I can imagine it can also be a safety hazard lah.
Yeah, okay. We have gone through light, we have gone through movement. So the last part in this chapter is sound. Yeah. Light and motion requires a bit of translation for the original message, whereas sound is more direct. When light is circling, like, there needs to be a basic understanding that, okay, the circling light kind of means loading. And maybe there is bound for misinterpretations. Yeah, the same goes to motion as well.
Yeah.
So sound is definitely more direct because it is foundational to how we communicate to each other socially. Yeah. So the author actually brings in an example is, let's say, a washing machine.
Yes.
Yeah. Done.
Which is a good example.
Yeah, it's a good example, and it's the sound that haunts me actually.
Yes.
My Samsung washing machine.
Not just you, my husband also.
Yeah.
Whenever he hears the music, he'll be like,
yeah.
time to hang the laundry.
Yes, yeah. Yeah. The sound, it's a good way to indicate that the cycle is completed. Sound is also good because it kind of evokes memory. So the author also say, like, we can recognize songs just by listening to a small part of it. So actually I remember there's like this TikTok challenge of them just playing a split second of
Oh,
the
a
song.
snippet of a song.
Yeah,
And
actually
as
just a split second.
Wow. Okay.
Then people are able to know what's the song.
Another more prominent song is ding ding ding.
Dun, 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 dun,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just 2 notes. Ding, ding. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she also introduced us 2 classes of sounds. One is very literal, like the actual phrases lah, meaning as is, like for example, talking to Siri, then Siri replies back with ding ding, your weather today is cloudy. Yeah, so that's literal sound. Whereas the representational, it's more tones, melodies or bleeps, which is
So it
the
signifies something like messages coming in or call coming in.
Yeah, so I think the Siri is a good example because it comprises both.
The representational sound reminds me of whenever I use my Bluetooth earpiece. Once I plug in my Bluetooth earpiece on my ear, I'm looking for this sound to know that it's connected. Then if I suddenly hear the sound of ding, 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 then I know, I got disconnected.
Yeah. And I think how it's being played, it's also quite important. Like the disconnected is usually going downwards, like ding, ding.
Oh yeah. Or even
Would
when you have a Zoom call or video call, when you leave the video call, the sound sounds like it's going downwards.
Oh, like ding, ding.
Yeah, like you put down the receiver.
Then when you join a call, it's like ding, ding.
Yeah, correct. Remember? One thing I noticed about sound also is like for example, to compare sound and light and movement, right? For light and movement, you need to be there to see what's happening. But if for sound, it's like invisible. You don't have to be able to see it happen for you to know that it's trying to send you a message. So you can be a further distance away, you in another room.
Yeah. Actually reminds me of on planes as well.
Yeah.
And when someone calls for attendant, then you have that ding.
Yeah, the light and then also the sound, right?
Yeah.
Then usually the attendant will come down. Yes, what do you need?
And then they will press the light to,
she will press
dim it.
to turn it off.
Yeah. I wonder if the air stewardess or the air stewards, right, they actually have work hazard, like phantom hearing.
Maybe they do.
Hear this sound when they go outside also. Actually, I remember the author also brought up an example in a hospital, measuring of the heart rate, like that very regular toot, toot, toot. Yeah, it shows that the patient's heartbeat is normal.
Yeah, correct.
That sound is also an assurance for the nurses to know that okay, nothing is wrong with them. She also shared like practical and technical points when crafting all these sound outputs, which is first you need to know the quality of your speaker. If your budget for the product team is high enough, the quality of speaker also, it's a good way to play around with the creativity. Yeah, doesn't mean you need to go with the highest quality, The other one is how far is the product from the user. Yeah, for example, I think usually washing machine, the sound is higher frequency and it's louder because they know that it's usually at the wash area, which is away from the living area. Yeah. So even if you are further away, you can kind of hear a faint right? So that is a good example of like, they take into a consideration the distance from where the user will usually be. Yeah. And I think the other one is also what other sounds are there in the environment. Is it competing with other sounds?
I imagine like back in the hospital example, you definitely have different machines making different sounds.
Or for example, like in the airplane, when someone calls for attendant, cannot be too loud. Because there's so many people around.
You can't disturb other people.
You're in the enclosed environment also. Yeah, and the other one I really like is you can consider what does your brand sound like. Yeah, I like it because for us, Kiasu Design Life, we also think about sounds.
Yeah.
Even for this book club, right? Like we were asking each other, hey, does this background music
sound
suit.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually at first we had one option which is more whimsical.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
I
like
was,
dung 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 dung
then
dung 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 dung.
I was telling Xuan, this sounds like a Hogwarts book club thing.
Yeah, and then we just kind of feel like that could be a better option, you know. And I think that is already us, kind of drawing back to, okay, how does KSDL sound like? Yeah. Okay, so we have covered both chapters 3 and 4. Woohoo!
Yay.
Basically, the 2 circles.
Yes, so we have 3 more circles to cover. Feel free to give us any feedback or just share with us how's the experience like reading this book. Are you enjoying it?
I think after these chapters, I would want to be more aware of, like, you know, what's the semantics and what's the light, sound and movement of my daily life.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, I know recently for the buses, they changed the sound of bus closing. Like, they changed to this very yapping sound, which is very annoying. Oh my god, I can hear from my house. Basically, when the bus is closing, it has the dang, 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 dang.
Also, you keep hearing this ringing sound even so far
I
from
cannot unhear it after that. Then I just tell my mom, oh my god, it sounds like a grandma yapping.
Yeah, I should take note the next time I take the bus. I think it would be cool if we even start a mini project where we just take pictures of the things or the products, or even take videos of products we see around us. I think that it involves sound, light or movement. Then we can even like collate it. Yeah, that would be cool.
We can share with each other.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So that's it for chapters 3 and 4.
4.
Looking forward to the next one.
Yes.
Alright.
Bye.